Gereish, Ois Gimel from the Mimer, and we were talking about the idea of Shalom B'Rav Laohvi Tורתך, that we were speaking about why the emphasis is on Laohvi Tורתך, the ones that love your Torah. It should seemingly be emphasized on the idea of those that study Torah, and what's the difference between Shalom B'Rav, great peace. And we were talking about that there's the Tורתך part. Shalom B'Rav Laohvi Tורתך is talking about those that love your Torah. In other words, the connection is not just because of the Torah study, but the connection goes deeper and further. It comes about because it's Hashem's Torah. And to be able to connect with that, to be able to reach with that, one needs to have preceded beforehand the idea of davening, that a person has to, through having avodas hatfilah before learning Torah, then that brings about that he should be able to have the remembrance and understanding and perception that it's your Torah that they are learning, and it's a connection with the love of Hashem. The Torah study is part of the connection with the love of Hashem. So now the Rebbe is going to go on further in explaining this idea about the recognition of the Torah being Hashem's Torah. This will be prefaced by what Chazal explain on the pasuk. It says in the pasuk, why was the land lost and destroyed? Alazaftem es Torasi, because you deserted my Torah. Comes the Chazal and say an amazing meaning of what does it mean that you deserted al ozvam es Torasi, because of their desertion of my Torah. So the Chazal say, what does it mean they deserted the Torah? Al shaloi berchu b'Torah tchila, that they did not make a bracha prior to studying Torah. So this is a very powerful statement. It's that just not making a bracha on the Torah, that's it. The Mezem moving for this understood the idea of making a bracha on Torah initially before learning. Who inyan ikri is a primary thing, not just in the service of a person in general, and the proof being of the arts to such a degree that by not making a bracha on the Torah, the land was lost. This is also something that's primary and core in the Torah study itself. Because the fact that they did not make initially a bracha on the Torah, it's called in the pasuk, Ozvam es Torasi, that they deserted my Torah, azivas ha-Torah, that the Torah was left. So it's both vital and crucial to the general service of a person. If they don't, there's terrible consequences. And additionally, it's vital to the Torah study itself, because the Torah is considered being deserted without having the bracha on the Torah. So now the Rebbe is going to be medayik, similar to what he said before. I have a Tורתך. So he's going to use the same idea over here on Ozvam es Torasi. This is not just a general leaving of the Torah. It's not a general leaving of the Torah, but rather like the expression of the pasuk, that they left my Torah, meaning they left the Torah of Hashem. And that was what was missing, and that came about, that they're leaving the fact that it's Hashem's Torah by not recognizing Hashem initially by making a bracha on the Torah. So the Rebbe is going to explain this in a deeper sense. It's not just, well, they didn't make a bracha, so they weren't thinking about that it's Hashem's Torah. Just like if someone doesn't make a bracha on food, he's not thinking about that he's taking Hashem's possessions and using for himself. But there's a deeper level. The idea that they made a bracha in Torah initially. is lahamshich hamshachas bracha v'shefa b'toicha Torah. It's about drawing down a bracha and a shefa within the Torah. Okay, moving on, like it's also understood from the expression that they made a bracha not upon the Torah. It should have said al ha-Torah, or that they did not make a bracha prior to the study of Torah. What's the idea of making a bracha in the Torah? Because the word bracha, as it's well known, is in the word drawing down. Like someone that takes a vine and like bends it over to reach downwards. This idea of sowing and planting, including also the bending the vine into the ground. Shaykh b'myuchad lakan is specifically connected to here, because when we talk about Torah mitzvahs, it has a strong connection with planting. Ki Torah mitzvah inyan shel zriya ba'aretz, because Torah, its mitzvahs, are an idea of planting in the ground, like many Mamorim explained. That's the idea that we do the mitzvahs with the physical objects, and that we have the great spiritual reward that like grows, just like when you plant a seed in the ground, you have growth from it. The fact they made a bracha in the Torah, it's the idea of drawing down the infinite light of Hashem into the Torah. It's the idea of being involved in Torah for the Torah's sake, for the very sake of the Torah itself. It's a well-known explanation. Chassidus, it says that a person has to be oisik b'Torah lishma. It doesn't say lishmai. Lishmai means for his sake, for Hashem's sake. So instead of doing it for some ulterior motive, you're doing it for Hashem's sake. But that's not the expression that Chazal used. The Chazal used the expression oisik b'Torah lishma. Lishma means for her sake, for the Torah's sake. What benefit does the Torah have? What am I doing for the sake of Torah? Because Baruch Torah means drawing down, from the word hamavrich, the infinite light of Hashem within the Torah. To draw down into the Torah a revelation of the infinite light of Hashem that's beyond the level of Chachma. Chachma is the initial or basic level of Torah itself. The Torah comes out of Hashem's Chachma. A Yid, through learning Torah, we have the power to infuse the Torah with a level that's higher than the Chachma, from the Ohr itself. Similar to what's brought down in those two Sfarim, David ha'mechaber Torah ba'Kadosh Baruch, that David HaMelech joined the Torah with Hashem, which is an amazing concept. And the way how it's to be understood, and is similar to what we said just now, that a Yid, when he learns Torah, he's Baruch, he's Mamshach, Hamshach in the Torah. That's what it means in the pasuk, that they left my Torah because they did not make a bracha into the Torah initially. Because through making the bracha upon the Torah, it becomes my Torah. The italicized the letter Yud, that he draws down the infinite light of Hashem into the Torah, thereby, like we said, David mechaber Torah shel Torah b'Kadosh Baruch Hu, it becomes Hashem's Torah, becomes my Torah. When they did not make the bracha in Torah initially, they made that my Torah was left behind. Shat Torah az he k'mayshi mitzad atzma, because then the Torah is the way it's on its own. It's separate, kaviyachol. It doesn't come down the revelation of the infinite light of Hashem that's beyond Chachma. Of course, it's the Chachma of Hashem. It's not totally separate, as we're soon going to explain. Next paragraph, 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Even though the Torah, the way it's on its own, is considered Hashem's Torah, it's not completely separated from Hashem. Right away at the beginning of Tanya, we have that Hashem and His Chachma are entirely one. And therefore, being that it's Hashem's Chachma, already you have that connection with Hashem. And not only that, but it's independent of what the person does. Regardless of what the person is at, he still has the holiness of Torah. Even when a person that's Tameh is studying the Torah, it's still the words of Hashem. That's why it's brought down that a person that is Tameh, regardless of what type of Tumah, certain things he cannot do. He can't bring a carbon, etc., etc. But Torah he could study. Why? Because the words of Hashem are not susceptible to Tumah. Like the Chazal say on the pasuk, "Behold, my words are like fire." The words referring to the way the Chazal are understanding it here is referring to the words of Torah. And the words of Torah are like fire. What's the similarity? Just like fire is not susceptible to Tumah, after the Torah and Tumah, also the words of Torah are not susceptible to Tumah. The Agam she'adam loy Torah haloi mitzvah Torah. Einoi shayich la'avoida l'chaber Torah l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even when a person is in such a state, when he's so impure that he's not, meaning he's in a spiritual level. We're not just talking about the impurities of Tumas Mes or something. But Bechlal, the whole avoid of joining the Torah with Hashem. He also not shaykh the other direction. David HaMelech was known to join Torah with Hashem. And there's the other direction, which is similar, we said. It's not identical, of drawing down the Oinus of Torah. Even then, if he's not shaykh to any of that, Kol Makom still in all, Gamma Torah Shaloi, even that type of Torah, even the Torah, the way this type of person studies it, consider the words of Hashem, and it's likened to fire, that by nature fire goes upwards, the same thing. These words of Torah go upwards regardless of this person's state. In the footnote in the previous page, that Rebbe even adds that the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Maimer of Tafshin Daled, on which this is based on, that someone that is even intentionally b'mezid b'megal upon b'Torah shloik halacha, he's deriving and learning the Torah to go against halacha. So even then, the Torah is not affected. The Torah remains in the state of purity. Anyway, continue on Reish Aleph, 3 lines from the top of the page at the end of the brackets. And he move on so it's understood. The fact that a Torah that's studied by a person that's impure, still in all is considered the words and the wisdom of Hashem, that the wisdom of Hashem and the Eibush are entirely one. But as powerful as that statement is, but it's still concealed. And to say the word Torasi, there he's missing it. It's Ozvam as Torasi. He's missing that part because openly it's not being manifested as Hashem's Chachma or Hashem's involvement. The Ein's Berach Ladarg B'Torah Torasi Shachach Baruch Begolui. This is incomparable to the level of Torah, which is my Torah, the Torah of Hashem, where that is revealed and open how the Torah is the Torah of Hashem. Especially so, this is even the idea of the Torah. How much more so That through Baruch B'Torah Tchila, it's not just about the manifesting the oneness that Hashem has with the Torah, but it's even more so to draw down the Torah, revelation of the Ein Sof that's beyond Chacham. So now we could go back to what we were talking about in yesterday's shir, about how important it is that Torah follow davening. It's the same idea like Baruch Hu B'Torah Tchila. Pisa Yuvan, he says, Nois Dalet, according to this, understood that the advantage and quality of Torah study after davening is not just concerning the study of a person, that his study that's after the prefacing of the avoid of davening is in a way of those that love your Torah, like we said before, that it is a love of Hashem, of Hashem's Torah, this is impacting and has an effect also on the Torah that he's studying. Which means Hamshachas Ein Sof b'Torah. It's in the drawing down of the Ein Sof in the Torah. When does that take place? The Rebbe is identifying the Baruch Hu B'Torah Tefillah with the Avodas HaTefillah. Seems he doesn't say it's exclusive. He says there could be the idea of Hamshachas Ein Sof in Torah, in his Torah study, Baruch Hu B'Torah Tefillah, perhaps without Avodas HaTefillah, but primarily when do you have this drawing down of the Ein Sof in Torah? That's only after it's been prefaced with the avoid of davening. So he says, how come? What is it about davening that ensures that we are drawing down the Ein Sof in Torah? The idea behind this is to be able to draw down the infinite light of Hashem in Torah. It's primarily when Torah study is done in a state of bittul, b'chlal, anything having to do with the infinite has to do with setting myself aside. If I'm going to connect with the infinite, I must not see myself as an entity. So the Torah study cannot be filled with my own ego and still allow place for the Ein Sof, like even the Chazal say, and that person that has an ego cannot live together. So to draw down the Ein Sof in Torah, the vessel for that, the vehicle for that, is a state of bittul. And that needs davening. So that the Torah study should be in a state of bittul. That's through prefacing the avodah davening. So he explains that davening in general is all about bittul. The hinei tefillah, we do not bittul. Tefillah is about bittul. During davening, a person has to stand like a servant before his master. That's even greater bittul than Kriyat Shema. So he's first going to show some aspects of bittul of Kriyat Shema, and then he's going to show how it's still different. The Kriyat Shema after asal dirma is be'einav v'likras mitzvasav l'haris b'etzboisav. During Kriyat Shema, you cannot signal with your eyes at someone, or with your lips, or to point something out with your fingers, which shows on a state of bittul. It's not just you're not supposed to speak. Still in all in halacha, there's different situations, different matters that a person may stop for in middle of Kriyat Shema, as opposed to tefillah. So that already we see that Shemoneh Esrei davening is much more, much greater bittul than Kriyat Shema. And then the Rebbe is going to bring from a lot more, if you will, open example. Kriyat Shema, we're seated comfortably, and davening, we're standing like a servant. As opposed to reading Kriyat Shema, that's also while sitting down. As opposed to davening specifically while standing up. Until that davening is only that the word amida, Chazal say, that when it says in certain places in the Torah the word standing, that's indicating davening. So in other words, that's how much the word amida is associated with davening. It's not just, okay, one of the conditions when you daven Shemoneh you have to stand. No, davening is so interconnected with the word amida. And this indicates the greater bittul. The difference between sitting and standing is to yeshiva moirem al inais yashvus. The idea of sitting indicates the idea of being settled. That's what Rashi explains when it says concerning Yaakov, that Yaakov was vayeshev, he was settled. What's the idea of being settled? Yaakov wanted to be in a state of tranquility. The true idea of being settled, which is the meaning of the word vayeshev, is to sit in tranquility. That's not a state of bittul. As opposed to standing, bittul indicates the idea of bittul. Through the bittul of davening, also Torah study that's after davening is in a state of bittul. And it comes down in it a revelation of the infinite light of Hashem. So that is the connection. The davening precedes the learning because the bittul of davening causes and makes available that there should be the revelation of the Ein Sof in davening, and from that it extends to the learning. This is the connection between the two explanations in the Medrash and the Pasuk. It says, behold, Yaakov Avinu saw in his dream a ladder standing on the ground, and its top of the ladder was reaching to the heavens. Pirush Echad, one explanation, the Medrash, top of page Reish Beis, Sulam Zeh HaKevish. The Sulam is going on the ramp of the Mizbeach. The ladder signifies the ramp of the Mizbeach. And the Mizbeach, as we know, has to do with Tefillah, because the Tefillah was established in the place of the Karbanos. And he also brings in footnote 42 that the Zohar explicitly says that the ladder that he saw, or a ladder in general, signifies the idea of davening, Sulam Datzlois. Pirish Beis, and the second explanation, the Medrash, as what's the ladder of Yaakov's dream? Sulam Zeh Sinai, Sulam goes on Sinai, which is Torah. Why do they share meanings of the same word? Like the Rebbe always emphasizes, if there's two meanings in the same word, it's because of the interconnectedness between the two. And the association between the two is Nase Ilui B'Torah or Gam B'Torah, because through the prefacing of the Avodah of davening, so then there becomes also an advantage and elevation also in the Torah learning. Because only through the idea of davening beforehand can you have the revelation of the Ein Sof prior to that. So that's why in the same word you have davening and learning, because what you are hoping for to accomplish in the learning, you are needing the prefacing of the davening beforehand. So now the Rebbe is going to go from this pasuk of Shalom Rav Le'avis Arsecha, because he didn't yet explain the Shalom Rav part, what's the a lot of piece, to what it says before that we had in a Maimer not long ago, V'chol banayich limudei Hashem v'rav shloim banoich. And we're going to talk about over there also the idea of Torah study, and Torah study in a different mode than what we're talking about over here, the Torah study where he's mamshach the Ein Sof, because it's been prefaced with the avodah of davening.